Hello and welcome to Hak It. I'm Sakshi, the CEO and founder of Foodhak. In each episode of Hak It, we'll be discussing females, founders, and of course food with some of my favorite people in the world. I've brought together some of my fellow founders to talk about their journeys, the challenges, the highs and lows of being a founder. And of course, we end each episode with a little nugget on food as medicine. I'm super excited to share this with you, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Hak It with me, Sakshi, the founder of Foodhak, and a very special guest, Nadia, the founder of YFood. The reason why she's even more special is because she has a very similar story to mine, and I want you all to hear it from her. But in a very short nugget, she's had her own story with food as medicine. She comes from finance. She made that switch onto entrepreneurship, and I want us all to hear it from her. So please welcome Nadia.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today.
Tell us about your story and tell us about what made you switch from a high-paying, cushiony, comfortable job into being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I just want to say thanks for having me here today. And you know how much a fan of yours I am. Massive girl crush. So yeah, thank you. And I love everything you do. So it's really exciting. So yeah, I'm Nadia. And basically, I guess... yeah, God, it's a long way back. It's a long, long way back. A long time ago, I set off my career in the city in investment banking, capital markets, trading roles, sales roles, broking roles, soul-destroying roles, all of the above. And at some point, I just basically decided it was time for me to move on. I came from a background of family of entrepreneurs. My dad ran his own business. He sold it. Now, my younger brother had also built a business and sold it to AirAsia. And my mother runs her own business. And so I was like, at some point, I was going to make a switch into running my own business. And also, I guess, I just really wanted to do something that meant something super meaningful to the world. So I left and I didn't know anything about anything other than food, because that's what all bankers know, because of basically your banking, and then you're also planning your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, where you're taking your clients. So the only other thing investment bankers know is around food. So I literally started thinking about how could I work in the food and drink industry. And also my grandfather was a greengrocer. My grandmother ran Mitchell and Butler's pubs, who are now one of our clients. And so I was just like, okay, food, it makes sense. But I knew nothing about food. So I just basically decided to join a food tech startup on a part-time basis whilst running an independent broking business and maintaining my finances that way. And what I learned, it was really difficult to combine food and technology. We can get into like all the reasons why later, but it was super, super difficult. So with a group of other people, I set up a meetup called Food Tech Wednesdays, and we just went, if you're a food tech founder, come to the pub on Wednesday night. And lots of people, incredible people from the food tech industry showed up with ideas, literally.
I love that.
Yeah, just literally ideas.
I love that.
Like ideas of like, yeah, we're going to get people to pick up food from the pub. And turns out nobody wants to pick up food from the pub. Or ideas of like, we could take on Just Eat. That's Deliveroo. So just bit by bit, I just started to build this community around entrepreneurship within the food and drink industry. And do you know what? Majority of those people were ex-bankers as well. I think we'd all seen the fintech boom, and we also like were over our jobs and we were looking for the next area. So we moved into this sort of food tech boom. And yeah, this meetup developed into a big festival called London Food Tech Week, which then developed into what YFood is today, which is a global community of around 24,000 food and drink businesses and companies, everything from the smallest to the biggest, across the whole supply chain. And yeah, we help them figure out their future food landscape and what's coming up in the future, as well as sort of build, I guess, the insight and intelligence that they need to develop their businesses, as well as the connections and partnerships that they need to do that.
Yeah, I've been to some of these events and they're truly impressive. I love the fact that unlike most community events, you guys actually come well-researched, data-driven. You get to learn like nuggets about the industry. For me, I love data. Math is my love language, as everyone knows. And I come back from a YFood event, networked with people, but at the same time learned about, this trend is growing at X%, and, this is the new innovation in this industry and in parallel industries. So I think you've done a phenomenal job. But tell us what what was the pinpoint, part of your journey that made you switch over to entrepreneurship? What was that decision? That moment?
I've had enough, I promise. I mean, there was a moment where I quit my last role in finance by just telling them to go their job.
Yeah.
And I won't do the hand action that I did with it. But yeah, I think at some point there, you feel that you're not really adding any value to anything. And I came from a very creative family who had all contributed to some sort of value within the world. And I wanted to be part of that story. I just didn't know where my passion was. And I had to build that up slowly and gradually. And I really, think if anyone's getting into any business, because we're going to get into this in a bit, I'm sure, setting up a business is so hard. Do it in something you love, like really something you care about. So if you don't, otherwise you're never going to make it to the end. And so I guess I just really wanted to take the time to find something that I was passionate about. And I did that by leaving banking and setting up my own boutique broking business with a business partner, which meant I had more flexibility and say over my lifestyle whilst I figured out where I wanted to go. So yeah, it was just a desire to do better.
So tell us about this lifestyle you mentioned. So tell us about this your journey into food as medicine.
So this is one of the. I think this is again a reason I'm such a big fan of what you guys do. I've had like a bit of a crazy like health thing recently. I say recently, last 2.5 years. So without going into all the diagnoses, and because of the reality is, and when you hear the story, lots of people don't actually know the exact details, and there's a lot of different hypotheses out there of what's happened to me. But basically 4 hours after taking the vaccine, I was in an ambulance with a suspected TIA, which is like not like it is a mini stroke. And the long story short is, since that point, I've been dealing with like a neurological response to life. By life, I mean getting too tired, missing a meal, running, any form of exercise. And just to put into context, the day before the vaccine, I ran around Richmond Park, which was like 11.5. So I think I can't remember 11.5 or 12.5K. I used to run that regularly. So I went from, this huge like powerhouse of fitness and energy and everything. And within 4 hours, I had 286 days of the last 2.5 years I wasn't able to walk. So it's been shocking. And I think it could happen to anyone at any time. And I definitely am a believer that maybe something like this may have happened to me anyway. Maybe that's the weakness in my body and the vaccine triggered that, or whatever it might be. But I have definitely taken, and I've always taken a holistic approach to healthcare, but all the research and knowledge that we were doing through YFood already starting to track this food as medicine, like, I guess, movement is what we call it. We put it under a bracket that we call the global health crisis. And then under that, we look at this food as medicine track and really looking at how do you deal with actual specific conditions using food and drink and lifestyle changes to be able to address those. And, all the reports we've been reading had been showing somewhere between 80 to 90% of chronic conditions could be addressed through food and diet and lifestyle changes. And that we knew huge amounts around gut health. We knew huge amounts about brain health. And obviously I was suffering from neurological symptoms. So it felt that I needed to both restore my gut health and my brain health. So I took a really long and strategic approach of supplementation, diet changes, acupuncture, and various other oxygen chambers, those of anyway. Lots of other things I did, which are a little bit wacky and out there. Alternative therapies, and managed to restore my health to the point where I can now run again, and I can now be on a podcast, and I can, run my business, and all of those things. But I think I actually see it as this like major blessing, because I think that I've now put certain practices into my life. Not that I was unhealthy before, but like certain practices into my life that I think will protect and restore my health for a much, much longer period of time. And then obviously that is really interesting to me, particularly as we start to look at this whole longevity trend and biohacking and age reversal and can I be 18 at the age of 58?
Oh, 100%.
100%. I'm totally going that way.
We'll do it together.
Yes.
But that is so inspirational, Nadia.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing this story. I keep telling, one advice if I had to give to anybody is the art of storytelling. Don't underestimate it. the art of storytelling is everything.
Yeah.
You know, combine all the bits of your achievements, your passions, and create a story, you know, a nicely flowing story, which is not too long, which is not too short either, and then practice it. And maybe that might help with confidence.
I think storytelling is the key to getting any message across.
Yeah.
So yes, it's something that we spend a lot of time training founders on, and 100% I think it probably can build confidence, particularly if it's an authentic and genuine story.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us one thing that you are absolutely sick of hearing as a founder, as a female founder and as a founder.
So how's your business going?
That's true. Actually,
As if you've kind of built Facebook in 2 weeks. Like, I mean, like, it's from people who you just can't even answer the question to, because you're like, if I told you what my reality was like on a day-to-day basis, you will have a heart attack on the spot. Like, it's not that I can't answer that question. So my only question is, great.
Yeah, fair enough. What are the challenges? I know there are loads, but what are the challenges? Let's be very honest to the audience about the challenges so they can visualize.
So look, I think about this. I think when you set up a business, it's like basically you just inherit this like mirror, and this mirror is like taller than you, it's wider than you, it's magnifying. And do you know what it does? It magnifies every single weakness or flaw that you have, right? And it's so obvious, like where you aren't able to step up or deliver, or you have an information gap. And you have a choice. You can either completely crumble, or you can start to figure out, how do you fix these weaknesses or flaws? Like it's often in yourself to start off with as a leader. So there's a huge amount of like growth that needs to happen and training under very pressurized conditions. So, you know, you think you train for a marathon for months and months and months, and we walk into entrepreneurship with no training whatsoever. You know, most of us really know reality of it. So you have to do it on the job. And I think like that process is really tough. And I think it can create huge amounts of mental pressure on people that maybe didn't really sign up for it or didn't want it. And I think if you see it as this like incredible opportunity to have this amazing challenge ahead of you, and you love solving problems, and some of the problems are solving problems within yourself, so that's self-growth, but also problems within your business, problems every single area you could possibly, to the point you get to the thing like I'm ready for the next set of problems, please bring me my next set of problems. So I think the biggest challenge of setting up a business is actually maintaining your mental well-being whilst operating under a place of significant pressure and uncertainty,
and how do you
being
do that?
a good leader. Yeah, well, I mean, everyone has their own ways, right?
Yeah.
I think it's about surrounding yourself with the right people, and it's not necessarily, the right people aren't necessarily the person who has made it X, Y, Z or whatever, or has tons and tons of experience. Because the reality is, I'm a big believer that nobody's going to know your business as well as you do. And everybody has an opinion or a view. So at some point you have to filter out that noise. It's about surrounding yourself with people who can really give you like that emotional and mental support and are on your side, but also give you strategic and constructive advice. Not the answer, but how you might be able to go about figuring that answer out. So I do think founders networks or like-minded founders is really important to have that around. I get that from my brother, who's now my business partner, but he gave me that from day one. He's an entrepreneur, and I can use him as a soundboard for anything and everything. And sometimes it's just like, I can't cope with today. And he'll just be like, yes, you can. Chin up.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, it's okay to be operating in areas that you don't understand, you don't know, and you have no experience of doing, because that's basically your new job. And you've got to start to figure out new sources of information or way of figuring that out quickly. And sometimes it's like, actually, the only way we're going to figure it out is by doing something, getting it wrong, and picking ourselves up and trying again. And we're going to do that as quickly and as cheaply as possible. Other times it's like, actually, I'm going to speak to a load of other people, read as much possible, listen to as much as possible in as quickly as possible, and then make a view on it and then try again. So it's just getting comfortable and building that culture of like, yeah, we're going to keep getting things wrong. That's okay. Because particularly if you've got a junior team, like they mentally really struggle. So if you've already got yourself to that thinking, you now have to convince the rest of your team that that's okay. And I remember when I set up my business, I used to say, I felt like I was walking in the team to the edge of a cliff and telling them that there was a net at the very bottom. And I was like, jump. And I was like, fuck, I hope there's a net. I hope there's a net. I hope there's a net. And like trying to run down to the bottom and put up the net and catch them all. And whoops, one went over the edge. Thank God there's a little bit of a pool there. They're swimming. Get them armbands on. Like, it was really like that at the beginning. And then bit by bit, I started to figure out how to like jump off less big cliffs, smaller cliffs, like more controlled cliffs, how to put more structure around that and give them the mental and emotional support to make them see it as a fun opportunity to figure it out. And also still like find ways to be like, okay, we figured this out, so it's still a success for us because we're like one step closer. So I think it's about building that system and culture around that as well.
I think it's really interesting you said. I actually made some notes while you were saying, because there's so many relatable things.
Yeah.
Before we started the podcast, I was actually just discussing with a colleague, in the early stages of a company, especially like ours, we have a tech team with the AI stuff.
Yeah.
We have an operations team with the food products. There's a lot going on.
And
with
there's
us.
no way you could be an expert in every single.
Sure.
Like,
Listen, my job title is not CEO and founder. It is the Chief Problem-Solving Officer, CPSO. Literally, every day my job is, I have to, when I wake up in the morning, I have my system, which is the meditation, the exercise, the, sometimes baths once a week or whatever, just to gather all that energy and get ready for the day, because my day is going to be full of checkmate problems. Like, I'm going to be checkmated every hour. Every time I finish a meeting, I have to now solve an impossible problem, and I know it. So I need all my energy. I need all my brain power. I need all my feminine power, my empathetic power, my, everything, right, to fight this battle. And that is what my Monday to Friday every single day looks like. Not to scare anybody, but this is what it takes for me to show up to work.
Yeah,
my sort of morning routine. But it's funny you talked about energies, because at my stage of a company, at our stage of a company, early stage, as you're building this company, there is a lot of people you hire who are on their own journey, and some people last with you till the end, till you take this thing to an IPO and conquer the world, right? Like your founding team. And some people have a short journey with you for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And when people move around, like when you hire someone and then they want to leave after a year, we notice such a change in energy. I notice it, And so there is a term called energy vampires. And it is true as much as it is true in your personal life. It's also true in your professional life. So you as a solo founder, female founder, I think you have to be very careful of these energy vampires. Protect your energy. Protect the positive energy you're creating in your startups, amongst your employees, the mutual respect you have for your employees. That creates positivity. And I feel like that positive energy can be quite a tailwind for the business, because in startups, let's be honest, no one's working for you for the salary, because bigger companies will offer you salary. They're working in it. They all do a bit of a salary sacrifice. They don't get pay rises as much because you're always fundraising, forever fundraising. They're in it because there's also a bigger mission that sort of ties you with them and them with the company and the product. And, so it's very important to have that positive energy in the startup and to maintain 100%.
That. And make sure your team don't burn out, right? Because it is actually your responsibility as a leader not to burn them out. And I see it happening so much. And it's so easy to do because you take your eye off the ball and your expectations are that we've got to keep going. And you've got, unrealistic goals and you burn out your team. And once you get that super negative culture in a company, it's almost like you have to start the whole team from scratch again to be able to like overcome it, because it's a really difficult thing to navigate your way out of. So I think you're really right. And I also think work-life balance and the energy and the meditation and the exercise, you can't get through this without looking after yourself.
As our companies grow bigger, I feel like they're going bigger healthily.
Yeah. I mean, in the food and drink industry, there's a lot of like positive culture, male-led companies as well. I think
that's great.
I think it is an industry that is quite like aware of culture and mental stability and all of these sorts of things. But I do think it comes naturally to women. Yeah. Because it's like, well, you do that in your family unit, right? You're responsible for making sure everybody's happy. Everybody's fed, everybody's watered, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
And then I'll sort
agree.
myself out.
I think that's really good advice because I think you have to tell your story to people because the story, I'm sure every founder has a strong, especially if you're a female founder, the story has to be strong enough for you to leave your amazing comfort zone that you were in.
Definitely.
To do something like this every day where you are checkmated every day multiple times.
Yeah.
Right? It's really difficult to do to become a founder. And so this story deserves to be heard because you need to sell this story, this dream, this vision. You need to bring people on board to be able to sell your product, your service. And you need platforms to be able to tell this story. And YFood is one platform. I mean, the reason we do this podcast is because I felt that there are a bunch of founder communities, but I don't find them to be as insightful, as honest. And I feel that there are a lot of questions, especially the female founders have in this ecosystem. And so I wanted to, I have so many female friends, female founder friends, and I wanted to kind of share and offer a very sort of authentic platform to be open, give tips, share the challenges for day-to-day running, and really help nurture this community because I think there is a lack of nurturing and a lack of understanding the importance of fundraising or the importance of storytelling, which is what you were trying to say, which is, I think, definitely a point that we can learn from the male counterparts is let's tell our stories with confidence. Let's own it, right? Let's bring everyone on board. So I think that's a great takeaway, is that make sure you're not just jumping into entrepreneurship because it's cool or because it gives you a title promotion or whatever you think. There needs to be a real passion because, it's very challenging.
I spend most of my time trying to talk the new founders that come through our doors at YFood out of setting their business up. So like if I can talk you out in this like next hour, you're never going to make it through. And then I often like one of the big pieces of advice I always say, like either fix a problem that like is a problem for you personally and that you really understand it, or fix a problem in an industry that you've already got like knowledge and experience working in. Because if you're going down like something that's completely like out of your realm, you've got a lot of learning to do and it's really, really, really tough, like really tough. And you probably are unlikely to like really empathize with the problem space. Like you're not really going to be obsessed enough with it to dedicate your next X number of years to trying to solve it.
So what do you see like when you meet an entrepreneur or, or founders in let's say the future of food space? What's a common mistake you find?
So we talked about general mistakes for founders in general. I think team burnout is like a really big one that you see across every industry. Burning out your team too quickly or creating a toxic culture. And that is something that I think you need a strategy on planning and how you're going to manage that. And it's really easy to see. I think within food, there's this like idea that like their physical businesses and their tech businesses within food tech, like they tend to have an actual physical operational piece and they actually have a tech piece as well. That's where we look at that food tech intersection. And I think each of those requires a huge amount of investment, a huge amount of expertise and a huge amount of development separately and together. So that's like it's just a much bigger piece of work than other tech-based businesses. And then I guess the second thing around that is because if it does physically end up somewhere, like it's underestimating the understanding or impact on your commercials of density and building up that can like density in certain areas, like going too big too quickly, not understanding how you're actually going to move the commercial metrics within that. And I think you often see either very techie people coming in or very foodie people coming in and something goes wrong somewhere.
Unless you're like us. Food is medicine plus technology. That was a very shameless plug. So when can you tell, like, what are some of the early pointers in your mind when a startup is going to be successful or probability of success versus this is doomed for failure?
Do you know what? I've just got so good at picking this out.
I can
we
imagine.
Are so good at it. And do you know what? It's not always the idea or the concept. And I will basically, obviously we started this meetup in 2013 and I saw the idea of Olio and Too Good To Go come through the door 100 times. And at the time it was completely radical. And if people don't know what Olio and Too Good To Go, they're both food redistribution channels. Too Good To Go they grew from redistribution within food service, so hospitality, where there's surplus food left over and you could go and pick it up. And Olio grew from actually surplus food in people's homes, but they both have integrated like strategies that have come somewhere in between now. So anyway, I saw that idea come through the doors a million times. And I mean, it was so out there because the idea that somebody would eat somebody else's leftover foods at the time was nobody would have gone near leftover foods in the way it was pitched or positioned, right? So I almost and this is the last time I ever laughed at an idea, I almost found myself laughing this idea out the door. Do you know what I mean? I really found it ridiculous. And actually, when I met, Tessa from Olio and when I met the boys, Jamie and the boys from Too Good To Go, I very quickly realised it wasn't the idea. It was the teams behind bringing these ideas forward.
The execution.
And yes, and actually for very different reasons, you could flag both Tessa and Jamie as people who are going to take these businesses forward. Did they have the exact right model right now? No. Did they have the kudos, the energy, the passion, in Jamie's case, the storytelling and the media, the PR ability to be able to tell that? And, we put them straight up in London Food Tech Week. And I remember having them pitching to this room of experts. And I won't name them, but some very big industry players this is never going to work. I remember it really clearly. And I thought, I have been saying that for years, but I can tell you there's something about these boys. They are going to make it work. They're going to make it work. And I felt the same when I met Tessa from Olio. It was just exactly the same feeling. And it was to do with the credibility, the kudos, the way they had approached the analytics, the analysis of their business, their market, their segment, the understanding of it. And, that credibility helped them raise money, which then helped them take that concept forward. So, yes, of course, it's picking a problem space and coming up with a solution that is in a segment that's big enough and makes sense and is the right timing for it and all of these things. But actually, I think the team and the people behind it are really probably the biggest indicators at an early stage of how easily this business is going to move forward or not.
Couldn't agree more. I used to be an early stage investor.
Well, but when I met you, I felt exactly the same, by the way. I was I said to the team, whether they've got it exactly right now, we will find out. But I tell you what, they're going to make it to the end.
I love that.
Yeah.
We will make it to the end. We will make it to the end, 100%.
So she's just going to figure it out.
100%. And I say this to myself in the mirror every morning.
Yes.
I'm joking. but I should. Everybody should.
You should.
No, I think we will. We will.
100%.
There is... I think the UK, at least, where we've launched our first physical products, I think people have responded very well. They love turning the back of the pack around. They love, seeing our clean ingredient labels.
Yeah.
So clearly there is this, health and wellness as a trend has been on a rise.
And I'm obsessed with checking the back of the labels. So then when you find a brand that you can really just rely on to have done that for you and understood all that. And when I tested them all, they taste great. So it was just, it made everything so much easier.
Yeah, people here have been loving our products, which is one reason why I like this market. I wish it was bigger, like consumerism, like the US. But I think one of the things I love about this market is it's a very health and wellness focused market. They turn the back of the pack around. They read. Our customer base is very nerdy. They love the fact that we can give them, because we strip out all the bad stuff. We put in all the good stuff. Automatically, it ends up being low-cal. You're not starving yourself, but you're still sort of looking after your health, your nutrition, and you're keeping fit and you're sleeping better. And so the response we've got has been really, really good in the market, touch wood.
Shall I interview you?
Me.
I can't help it. I've been trying to rein in the whole way through all the questions I'd like to ask you.
I know. Yeah, you should. But you know what? I have a last question.
Yeah, go for it.
Which I think would be helpful for the audience. So how do you stay ahead of the curve with all the trends in your industry? Keeping it informative for members like us. Yeah, how do you stay ahead of the curve?
So I always call us a community-driven insights company. So we learn a lot of what we know from our community, and we speak to, we run themes. At the moment, we're running a theme called Heal, which is around healing the planet and ourselves and the intersection of the two. We'll speak to 400 companies in that process. We'll interview them, we'll log all the details, they'll send us their reports, their research, et cetera, et cetera. And then we also track companies and what they're doing in innovations. Of course, we've got huge amounts of consumer research that's coming into us from various sources. And so we start to like paint all of that on top of all of the problem space. And we're listening to the food and drink industry, the food tech businesses, the data that's coming in from all of that, overlaying it all together. And then very quickly, it becomes super easy for us to, paint a picture of what the future of food looks like. So we track, technological innovation. So, is that technology even viable right now? At what point does it come into commercialization? Like, what are the challenges around that? So we have like those types of experts. We track like world problems or social problems, which there's huge amounts of data from every government and country out there. And so it's thinking about that in line with those things. We listen to the industry and the current challenges their faces and priorities. And the thing is, industry moves slowly. So like they've been talking about net zero for ages. So it's really easy to forecast like the problem spaces, how they're going to need to achieve net zero and the solutions that are going to be needed. So we can almost call like where we're going to see the growth or traction on something like that quite early on. So we can like future forecast 10 years. So we say, this is the problem. This is what they're trying to fix it. These are the biggest drivers of their problem space. So they're going to need solutions in that. Where's the technology and innovation? What's looking at the cost levels of that? And we start looking at all of that. Who are all the calls that we've had? What's coming up? Right. That's what it's going to look like in 10 years' time.
You're describing my previous job at SoftBank. Like, this is how I used to like diligence companies, is finding the problem, solutions, laying out the companies and picking the ones I wanted to. That's
but we
really
do it with
smart.
a lot more fun.
Yeah, you can see that. You can see that. Like, I feel like, you guys are very insight driven. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
In the next part of the podcast, I wanted to cover a nugget on food as medicine. So I've obviously spoken so much about this AI engine that we have, and we're always looking at clinical research. And so I thought this is a great place to actually share something that our engine pulled out on lentils. So we all know lentils, right? We all try to incorporate them, and there's different types of them. Our engine actually pulled out 74 different results in clinical studies. And of course, it's a very digestible plant-based protein, which we know protein powders are like a big market, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But I have a big problem with it because it's all chemicals. Turn the back of the pack around and you won't recognize a single substance in there. That really bothers me. So actually, in our recent NPD cycle, we have been playing around with lentils to create a all-natural, easily digestible, non-processed, no-chemical protein powder. I think it's going to smash it. It's too early to talk about it, but I'm really excited about that. Also, I love lentils because this is going to come as a surprise to you and to most people, because it did come as a surprise to me. It's actually, these are also really good for cardiovascular health.
Really?
Who would have thought? Yeah, they're actually really rich. They're high in iron, manganese, phosphorus. What do all these things mean? Basically, they're really good. They're really helpful for blood formation. So you've got your red blood cells, really good for that. Really good for bone mass. We know they're high in protein, so good for like our bones and stuff. And really good for oxidative stress. What is oxidative stress? It's actually to do with aging. So when our cells get stressed, it's called oxidative stress. And that's kind of what causes aging and aging-related situations. So lentils is a great source of protein. We should be adding it in our diets. It's also a source of polyphenols. And there's loads of recipes that we're going to share through our new app that's coming.
Awesome.
Which is fun. And that's a wrap. This was a really insightful and fun episode, especially for me, because not only Nadia is a female founder, but she is also a female founder in the future of food industry. So hopefully you all find lots of fun nuggets. You learn about food, you learn about entrepreneurship and what it is to be a female founder, and hope you enjoy it.
I just really love avocados.
Thank you for listening to Hack It. I hope you enjoyed the insights and stories that we shared today. Are you hungry for more? Follow us on Instagram at The Foodhak. That's a hack without a C. Or subscribe now to be the first to hear about our next episode when it drops. See you next time.